The Darth Retro Podcast is brought to you by the letter T. Uh, T, the letter. Okay, so I don't get good sponsors these days. Who doesn't? Haha. The Darth Retro Podcast is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on intelligent subjects, but mostly just sports, music, and life. And now, here is your adorable host, Tom Wagner. And welcome back to the podcast. This is, I think this is the 6th episode of the Darth Retro Podcast. Pretty much right in the middle of, probably one of the more busier weeks that I've had in quite a few months. Sunday, I had to work. Monday was visit MSUM day, at least for me. Yesterday, I feel like I have some sort of cold or something. I'm not sure what it is, but I can definitely feel something's a little bit up, but. Anyway, yesterday I had to work, and then pretty much today is pretty much podcast recording day and pretty much releasing the podcast, and then tomorrow is payday for me. I get to go to MSUM again to give a textbook that I've kept for quite a while to a female friend of mine. And then I'm supposed to head over to Newman Outdoor Field to be a mascot for the radio station, the Eagle 106.9, for about an hour. So yeah. Let's see. Friday I have to work, and then pretty much Saturday, which I thought I was supposed to be doing the Dragon football games, but sadly, they went with another person instead of me. So basically, I have nothing to do on Saturdays for now until pretty much, at least until I don't know, maybe November. I don't know, late October, late November, early November, I should meant, but. So, if you notice my voice is a little bit more odd, that's probably the reason why, is that I have some sort of bug in me that's making me feel a little bit more weirder than normal. But in terms of the podcast, I'll still do it anyway. I mean, I don't feel like total utter crap, but it's... Oh well, but let's get started or something like that. I'm pretty much recording this on a kind of a really hot August day, and it's supposed to get up to like the 90s, lower 90s or something like that. But tomorrow is supposed to be a lot more cooler. But anyway, let's get started. Well, in the previous podcast, I talked a little bit about the future of radio and what I think that the future has in store for radio and the business of radio. But it's definitely quite an interesting future to think about in the future of radio, and being kind of at the forefront of it's actually pretty exciting. So, thinking about career inspirations, and what I mean by that is basically kind of radio inspirations, and it's probably one of the first inspirations that I had to get into radio was basically about 10 years ago, probably. And basically Christmas of 2002, I got a radio, which I still have in my possession today. and it's still actually really good condition. Other than the fact that I can't really play CDs that much because it kind of skips and stuff, but um, I can still play the radio and such. It, but CDs, they're used to there used to be good days when when I could play a CD off of there and have no skipping. So, but oh well. Anyway, basically the first radio station that I really got into was, of course, the Eagle 106.9. Oddly enough, and they used to have like a program every Saturday, which they would later turn it into basically a six day a week program. It was called Hall of Fame Coast to Coast with Tom Kent, and basically Tom Kent was kind of the definitely one of the more bigger inspirations that I've come to know. And basically every Saturday night, I used to plan on getting the radio turned on about around 7, and for about 5 hours, I would listen to that show, Hall of Fame Coast to Coast with Tom Kent, and basically while playing Age of Empires 2, which was still kind of new at the time. It was certainly about 2 or 3 years old, but it certainly was one of the more popular games, PC games of the time. But yeah, definitely playing that game while listening to Tom Kent. Basically, one of the more bigger memories that I had was hoping that he would play Billy Joel's Piano Man, and basically I would wait every single week just to hear him play that song. Unfortunately, it didn't happen every week, but every so often, when it did happen, I listened to the whole song, and it's definitely one of my more favorite songs that I would have. But about a couple years later, I discovered about the whole technology of CD burning. And what I used to do sometimes when I didn't have homework was to pretend I was a DJ, basically playing songs. And basically one of the more favorite things to do was basically have little intros to songs and basically have the song play and then come back a few songs later and then play something else and then and then play something and then just basically talk about it. It's if there was any kind of reason for me to get into radio, certainly that was probably it. But then pretty much after that, I kind of got into programs like InDesign and Photoshop and learning about those kind of things, and that was basically from 2006 to basically about 2007. And actually, maybe it was probably 2005 or so. So for about a couple years in high school, I was basically into more of the graphic design part of life than radio. So, thinking about it also a little bit more, because I got into kind of one of the more classic rock stations, which was the Fox 107.9, which is kind of one of the more. They used to have a program called with Nights with Alice Cooper, and basically I also listened to that. I was pretty much a dedicated listener to that. I guess I still am, sort of, but um, I still listen to his podcast every so often. Basically, he's one of my more favorite inspirations that I got into. And basically, once I got into podcasting about a few years ago, probably 2010 or so, and basically I soon became fans of Bill Simmons' podcast, which is BS Report, PTI, Around the Horn, some other programs like the Tony Kornheiser Show. I'm starting to get into the Scarborough country, which is kind of one of the mix of the comedy and sports topics, but kind of sort of the inspiration for this podcast is basically all those programs, and I could basically talk about all of them basically in probably one podcast, but I certainly won't do that. But I was trying to think if I have anything else to talk about for this one topic, but I'll probably talk a little bit more once I get into the Alma Mater tales later in the podcast. But let's end this topic. So the college football season's starting up in basically less than about 24 hours, but basically this is kind of more of a Division One preview. I'm not really going to talk about the certainly the lower divisions like the FCS Division 2 or Division 3, but I'm primarily going to stick to basically talking about Division 1. And basically looking at the basically one of my more favorite college football teams, which is Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Basically the schedule is actually looking a lot better than what in previous years. You basically have Brian Kelly's basically going all out, basically with the schedule. You have Navy, which is certainly one of the more popular schools to watch. Then you have Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, University of Miami, Florida, the Hurricanes. Then you have Stanford, Brigham Young University, Oklahoma, Pittsburgh, Boston College, Wake Forest, and then you have USC to finish it off. It's definitely kind of hard to predict how well Notre Dame's gonna finish out, because basically there's so many questions that Brian Kelly has to answer for the season. Thinking about it, I think we can win. I think we can beat Navy. We can probably take down Purdue, Michigan State, Brigham Young, Wake Forest, perhaps maybe Boston College. I think basically our biggest losses will be probably definitely Michigan, because somehow or another they can't stop Denard Robinson, and for basically about early in the season, no one can possibly stop Denard Robinson unless unless Alabama, who they play this season, basically, if Alabama's defense can stop Denard Robinson, they can basically take down Michigan altogether. And anyway, back to the subject. I think we can definitely lose to USC. As long as Matt Barkley is playing for USC, the sky's the limit for USC. Let's see what else. Oklahoma is definitely one of the more schools that can certainly beat us. Basically, the Big 12's basically gonna be pretty revamped with the loss of Missouri to the Missouri to the SEC. Excuse me, but adding TCU will give them a little bit more power. Give them a little bit more power as a power conference. But it's basically more of a TCU, Texas, Oklahoma State kind of conference. The Pac-12 is probably going to be the more second hand to the SEC, and basically you have the Oregons, you have the Stanfords, you have the USCs, you have the UCLAs. So I think it's the Pac-12 is going to be a little bit more powerful as a conference. I'm not saying the Big Ten is going to be amount to anything, but certainly with what has gone on with the Penn State scandal, I'm not thinking that the Big Ten is going to amount to much. But look, thinking about the Notre Dame schedule, I think we can win at least 8 to 9 games, at least 8. Basically our schedule is kind of a little bit more difficult than previous years. I probably give it. I give it a B plus, either a B or a B plus. When certainly other years you'd probably get basically a B minus. But basically Brian Kelly's definitely quite on the hot seat this year, and it's I don't know. I think Brian's a lot better of a recruiter and a head coach than Charlie Weiss was, because I wasn't a pretty big Charlie Weiss fan, at least to say the least. But Charlie was a really good recruiter, but in terms of being a head coach, he just wasn't built to handle all the expectations of the job. And I'm more of a Brian Kelly fan, but he has probably one of the more bigger hot seats than probably anyone in the country. But in terms of quarterbacks, I was more of a Tommy Rees kind of guy, but I mean, basically when Brian Kelly would put out Dane Christ, it's basically you're basically questioning what Brian Kelly's really thinking, and Tommy Rees has been one of the more better Notre Dame quarterbacks that I've seen probably in a few years. Is he better than Brady Quinn? No, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it's it could be a very interesting college football season for Notre Dame at least. You know, but on to the onto another conference. The SEC is basically the top dog of college football. I mean, basically, if if it's gonna be basically an LSU Alabama conference, it's pretty much gonna be basically like last season. It's it's basically gonna be SEC West showdown, and I'm probably more excited about the LSU Alabama game than probably last year's. Last year's matchup was kind of more of a sleeper fest than anything, and certainly the national championship game was probably a bore fest to say the least. Excuse me. That's thinking about the football, the college football playoff system. It's actually a pretty good system. I have never been a huge fan of the BCS, and basically a 4 team playoff is it's definitely a better choice of playoff system than plus one college playoff system. And basically, yeah, the top 4 teams in the country basically duking it out. I mean, it's I can't wait. I can't wait for it to happen. But in terms of this subject, I'm pretty much done with talking about it. So, on to the next topic. Well, it's the first week of classes in MSUM, or known as the Minnesota State University Moorhead, and basically kind of continuing on with the Alma Mater tales. And basically, my first week as a freshman of classes, it certainly I was having kind of a little bit more of the orientation withdrawal, and because I thought basically orientation week was one of the best weekends of my life. It's basically once you become basically a sophomore and up, basically I didn't go to orientation activities after my freshman year. Basically, I wanted to let the freshmen have fun, enjoy themselves. Then I don't know. I was more concerned with basically getting into my career, which was graphic design, which certainly was at the time was my biggest interest, and for starters, it was one of my more favorite things to do. But based on my freshman year, I was more into trying to take care of my generals, like my math, science, English. Well, basically most of my generals. I didn't get into my major classes until my sophomore year. And basically my first week of classes as a freshman was, I don't know, I was slowly getting into the funk of college, and basically before I went MSUM, I pretty much took the college entry exams, basically like everyone else. And I'm trying to remember if it was the SAT or the ACT. I think it was the ACT test. It's basically the double digit score that it was basically the double digit score of the test. I think it's the ACT that basically gives the double digit score, which my score was a 16, and the basic requirement for enrollment for MSUM was 17. So I was basically left with the choice of basically going to another school, like the Minnesota State Community and Technical College, or MSUM. MSUM had a program called the Corrick Center, which is kind of the basically kind of the college entry programs that for those who who didn't meet the requirements of enrollment, but it I don't know. I thought it was a good program, and basically without the Corrick Center, I would probably be somewhere else in my life. So I definitely have to thank the Corrick Center for giving me a chance, and basically I didn't let them down by any stretch of the imagination. And basically once I was pretty much swamped with offers to join these organizations and clubs. And I'm trying to remember if it was during orientation or my first week of classes. Basically, I read something about how KMSC was looking for DJs for the upcoming semester. And I was with a fellow orientation counselor that she wasn't my orientation counselor, but she was kind of a friend, so to say. And anyway, I read something about it, and basically I was taking a look at it, and basically I thought, maybe this might be something, that I kind of wanted to get into. And she basically said, go for it, try it out, take a look at it, see if you like it. And so I applied for the DJ position there, which I didn't get paid to do it, but it was kind of more of a volunteer kind of thing. And about 4 years later, I basically had about a 4-year career there, and I basically only missed one show, and that was my senior year. It was basically the last week of April, and somehow or another I came down with a cold. Basically what I have is kind of less of a cold than it was what it was then. So I basically had to tell the heads of staff that I couldn't do my show, which normally you're supposed to do, but certainly in the past, DJs didn't really show up to do their show. And I actually remember the day. It was April 26th, 2010. And basically my last show was my last show was April 30th, which the day after was the day President Obama announced that Osama bin Laden has been killed. So definitely one of the more exciting weeks, to say the least. Um, my super senior year, which was my 5th year, which was this past year, I was thinking about coming back out on my 2nd retirement and to do one more semester of it, and basically for a couple reasons. Basically, one, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work because I wanted to do it, but I kept on email pestering a person, and basically I couldn't. It just didn't really happen. And then another reason was that basically on Leap Day of this year, 2012, I basically pretty much broke my left arm, and that pretty much ended basically any kind of hope for me to do another year or semester of KMSC, Dragon Radio. So anyway, back to the subject. Basically, that was basically how I got into college. Basically, I didn't have a score that the school certainly would automatically enroll, but I definitely look at myself now and say that I'm pretty much blessed, that I pretty much got my blessings every time that I wake up, knowing that someone gave me a chance to get into college and basically make the most of the college experience. And I'll basically talk a little bit more of Alma Mater tales, but at least for right now, for this week, I'm pretty much done with talking about it. So, I would talk about weird news, but I'm not really up to it. So I'm pretty much gonna end this podcast pretty much on a little bit more of a low note. So hopefully next week I'll talk about some other topics as well. But for this week I'm pretty much done, except for one announcement. On September 1st, I'm basically going to be creating a Facebook page, which is basically going to be called Darth Retro, and it's basically kind of a little sister to this podcast. So I'm definitely quite excited to do that. I'll probably post pictures of like some other popular Facebook pages, like probably like the Rage Guy, and such. But I'm definitely excited to have my own Facebook page and start that up pretty soon. So probably next week we'll probably talk to you all later. Adios.